Okay, Global War, 1936, 1945. I'm doing the 36 scenario. We're doing the British Commonwealth, or Britain, or whatever you want to call it. Basically, the British, FEC, and Australia. I'm not quite sure how I'm going to do this, so I'm going to start with Australia first. And then, depending on how this goes, I might do different videos or something. We'll figure it out. So, here we're just going to do Australia. As you see, Australia starts with pretty much nothing. They've got a minor factory, a port, and an airbase in their capital, which is denoted by the bridge there. And they got a Navy base in New Zealand. That's all they have for facilities. They've got one cruiser and one transport. They got one motorized infantry. They got one artillery and 3 militia. That's what you start with. And your starting income is $3 a turn. So pretty much Australia's got one really hard job at the start of the game. It's the most important job of the whole game. Is for the first little while here to just stay alive. All you got to do is build up some stuff in your capital. Make it a bit of a hard nut to crack, because the Japanese got to then expend a lot of force down here to take you out. So you're just trying to stay alive, make yourself a hard nut to crack. That way Japan's like, I got other things I want to do, and they're closer and easier. But if you're a really easy target like you are right now, yeah, you might not stay alive. So yeah, my advice to you as an Australian player in this game, just build up some land forces in here. I don't care if it's a stack of infantry or whatever you want to do. So you're making $3 a turn until somebody motivates you to start spending your war income, and that maxes out at 7. So you won't even be able to build a fighter except for every second turn, right? So you want to be a little bit cautious. I'd say first few turns you probably just build up some land troops. That way you defend this, and then you know what? Build yourself up some subs or something, either subs or fighters or something, because you're gonna just basically be a harasser. You're gonna be sending out little troops here, and you're gonna be, you know, annoying the Japanese, because you're ticking off that guy, and you're gonna hit this line somewhere, and you're gonna convoy it if you can get to it, and you're just gonna be kind of floating around, a guy here, a guy there, guy over here, just being general annoyance, a nuisance. Really, you're just a nuisance. A reason for them to go, oh, what is that little guy doing? Send a couple units to kill you, lose 1 or 2 units, and weaken itself for when it fights the big boys. That's your job as Australia. Just, you know, hunker down, full turtle on the capital at first. Then you can start thinking about expanding, right? But I'd be cautious. Don't do that too aggressive. Do it with a partner. You are the little brother of Britain, so be careful. All right, so that's that. That pretty much Australia. That's about all I got for you. Let's see. Australia's got some kind of what are your thing? No Japanese warship in or south of the Netherlands East Indies. That's your one and only national objective. I think it gets you a whole buck. Maybe it's 2. So the Netherlands Dutch East Indies are Sumatra, Borneo, Celebes, Dutch New Guinea, East Timor, or Java. So you can't have any Japanese warships in this line here, or south of it. This would count too. It's south of it. Same as here, for you to get that bonus. So if you're playing a smart Japan player that looks at all the bonuses, they're always going to have something down in here, either in here or way down here. So it'll be annoying. All right, so that's pretty much Australia. You are the little brother. Be annoying and don't die. That's about all I can give you. All right, now we're going to move on to the Far East Command. There's a few crazy strategies you can do with this, but on the most part, you're going to be pretty much trying to stay alive as long as you can until the Americans can come in and give you a hand. And when the Americans come in to give you a hand, the Australians should have built themselves up enough so that their tough nut to crack capital can get loaded up on some transports and stiffen up the American resistance, either act as a can opener for them or whatever. But you as the Far East Commander are probably going to be in a lot worse shape because you are typically you're the prime target for Japan. Besides China there. China's a prime target early on, but you are the jewel in the crown, so to speak, when it comes to that. That's relatively simple, but it's a lot of work, a lot of grinding. The French hear it really easy, but they may get that through Vichy. Siam, they're going to get that anyway, right? So yeah, you're pretty much going to have all these units coming at you. All the Japanese are probably going to come in at you, like I showed in that Japanese China feint video there. So it's going to be a bit difficult for you. There's a couple things you can do. Not all of them are the best. They lead to different things, but you're more or less going to be reacting to what China does. So if China is just slogging away in Japan, what I would do is I would just move my units back a bit. My naval units kind of form a bit of a block here. I want to save that one. Maybe drop a destroyer up front. Maybe you move this stuff all over to here. Right? You're just kind of moving it back. And what you can be doing with these transports, I'm sure if you're watching my videos, then you've probably seen some of General Hand Grenades. He's got an excellent video in the Global War Strategy or something like that. I can't remember. It's the Middle Earth. You can still use the same kind of technique here. You can only build one at this factory though, right? But you can scoop and deliver, right? And you just build up Egypt for yourself. That way Egypt, for example, the Italians aren't that strong down here, but you don't want them to take over Egypt because then you lose control of the Med. Another thing, if you want to maintain control of the Med and you're building up Egypt, you can just move all this Navy down into here. Which, when combined with this Navy, would possibly give the Japanese a little bit of a pause. And then you got a pair of transports you can be using along here to start shucking stuff up and down the coast, right? And in your shucking, you can easily go from the port in Aden, 1, 2, 3, right? And then from this port, 1, 2, 3 to Aden. And from Aden, you can go 1, 2 to there and then port back, right? Or you can go from here right into, I need to back this thing off a bit here. There we go. So from Aden, you can go into there, to that port and back. You can go into this port here and back and drop them off. Or you can go right into here, drop them off, or drop them off there. And you can just set yourself up a little shuck going that way. Or you can go the other direction and you're coming from the factory in South Africa, which you may have decided to build an extra one. That wouldn't be a horrible idea. I wouldn't build too many factories in here though. Japan, unless Japan takes a long time to get there and you got a plan to get extra reinforcements there, that factory is just going to make you juicier. So be cautious. Yeah, this South Africa way down here, very, very difficult for anybody else to get to. Even these Italians would have a bit of a struggle to get down there. And by the time these Italians have moved down to here, you've already built 1 or 2 units, right? Build yourself a colonial, a couple of militia, and whatever, an artillery or your pick, a fighter even, whatever. You build some stuff down here, then you start crushing these Italians going back up and reinforce Egypt, or you're using the transport shuck. This is one possible way you can do this. And kind of, in order for Japan to come at you, if you take a look at this map, look how far away that stuff is, right? Look how far away Japan is. Look how close to Japan the US is compared to that Navy way over there, right? You know, that's an option. It's not. This doesn't always work. Sometimes it just means that Calcutta is going to get crushed faster. So, you know, you got to kind of gauge the situation, and you're kind of hoping and praying. But you know, you do what you can. Right? This is an option. It's not the option. It's an option. The reason why I find the British so fun to play is because they're so reactionary. You have no idea what's coming next. It could be anything. So I'm just tidying that stuff up here. I moved this stuff around so many times and doing these videos that I pretty much have this setup memorized. It's pretty sad. Anyway, so yeah, that's one option. You bring all this stuff down here, right? But you're kind of giving up the med to the Italians. But at this point in time, the Italians aren't even in it. Another thing I've seen done, and I'm just going to leave the camera here, is I have seen this happen, where the Far East Command just rolls in here and comes to join you. They bring all their stuff. You got this Navy over here. Let's show that a little better. So yeah, the Far East Command comes in, bringing their white ships along with your tan British ships that were already in here. And these ones were already in here. And if you really get excited, you can always bring some of the Navy that's up here down into the med. And you know what you do? You can't declare war on Italy until Italy declares war on somebody else. If somebody else attacks Italy, it doesn't count. So you're kind of hooped. But if Italy's getting aggressive, go in there, roll in there, crush it. Or roll in here. You're safe from the Japanese. They can start running amok, but then you just wander through the Suez Canal again, and you can take this whole Navy with you. Or you can bring this whole Navy out and I don't know, bring it around to bother the Germans or something. That's a couple of options there. Yeah, that's like Far East Command. There's not really much you're going to be doing. You're kind of doing the same thing as you do in Global 40 or any of the other Axis and Allies type games, or you know, or what Australia is doing. You're just struggling to stay alive. If you're building ships, you're killing yourself. So don't build ships. Don't be building factories, because a factory is 3 infantry and a buck on the side, right? So 2 infantry and a colonial. Why are you building a factory? You only make 14 bucks a turn. Maybe build 1 factory, right? That way you can build 2 units. And then you build your 2 units, you build a colonial, and you build a militia or 2. You build your 2, or you save money to build better units like a pair of fighters or whatever. But otherwise, you should be building at least an infantry every turn. You know, you're dropping a colonial somewhere. You're buying an infantry. You're buying something else. You're dropping a colonial, buying an infantry, buying something else. You got some extra money, throw some militia on all these things here. Whatever you got to do, right? Keep it alive. Make it hard for the Japanese. That way they got to grind on you, and that way the Americans have a chance. Because American supply lines are going to be so far from here that they're going to be just struggling to get enough troops out. And when they do land them, they're going to die. And by the time they get the next batch of troops in, the shuck on this side is so far, especially down to here. Next to Japan, it's not too bad. But the shuck on this side is way faster. All right. The transport shuck, so to speak. So Far East Command, let me just take a quick look at their sheet here. Far East Command, Aden and the Suez are both Allied control. You get +2, and yeah, the ANZAC gets +2 for no Axis warships in there. So Aden here, this port, and the Suez Canal. That's the key for Far East Command. That's their national objectives. Their only one is +2 if Aden's alive and the Suez Canal's alive. That's why, you're going to be bringing these transports in there. it'll be giving you 2 extra, by giving these transports to the British player or working the Indian Ocean for him, you're going to be giving him a serious leg up, which will be giving you a $2 bonus every turn from this one and that one. So don't, why wouldn't you? Alright, so there's that. Now, sometimes you don't want to give the Mediterranean to, or you don't really care about the Mediterranean. You don't need to keep it. Sometimes it's worth more to you to just let the Italians go nuts in there while you do something else, right? In that case, I've seen this before, where we haul all this shit out, all these ships, and they just go over there and harass the Japanese. In fact, I've even seen extra ships from here come through Panama Canal and go harass the Japanese, right? You just totally abandon the Mediterranean. But with Africa, you seal her up. You seal up the bottom here. You let them take this, but you seal up the bottom, right? And then you counterattack it. If you give them just this stuff on the rim here, there's not a lot of stuff. You don't want to. I don't recommend you just give it away. But if you can, you know, let them sail around in there. But keep Cairo. Keep Gibraltar. You keep Gibraltar and you keep Cairo, they're trapped. I mean, they can get subs out and in, but that's it. You own the Med, even though you don't have a ship in it. Why waste your ships fighting that? Right? Because you will be getting convoyed. I don't know if you saw my German convoy line, but most of these convoy lines on the map, like this convoy line here, Australia and the Dutch. So if you got Dutch income, that can be taken out of your pocket, right? That one ends here. I mean, that one's for the Japanese, so convoy that one as much as you can. But then you got this line here, Far East Command, French, and the Dutch again. This one's going to get convoyed on you. The Japanese or the Germans are going to try and convoy this line. It goes all the way around, right? And then it goes all the way up to Great Britain. Another one that goes back and forth between Canada and Great Britain. And then you got this other one that goes right through the middle of the Med. So if you're the British player and somebody says, hey, you want to do the Suez reroute, if you say lose Suez, say yes. Because otherwise you won't even be able to, especially if you don't have Suez and Gibraltar, you won't even be able to get an escort on this line. Italy's just going to park 2 units on this line, one here and one here, and they are going to convoy you over and over and over and over every turn. And that is an expensive line. It's worth 6 to the British, it's worth 2 to the French, and it's worth $1 to the Italians. So, I mean, yeah, that's going to be pricey. So don't forget to protect your lines, especially if you watched my German strategy video there. Can't remember which one it was, but I showed you a really brutal way to open up the war and just hammer the British on their convoys. And man, when the money's just not in your pocket, you can't even buy units. It doesn't matter. That's worse than losing units in a fight, killing somebody else's units. It's just you lost units before you could even use them. So up here, I'm sure you notice you have virtually no troops. Like you've got 1 militia here, you got 1 militia here in Belfast. This is a neutral, that's not yours. You got 1 infantry and a militia, you got a strategic bomber, and you've got yourself a medium bomber. That's it. It's not a lot. You do have your 2 transports in the ocean here, but there's no units over here to move across either, just 1 militia. So what are you going to do? Well, my last video there, I showed the German blockade, and I still got the remainder here. You're not going to let that happen. You are not going to let that happen. Believe me, you let that happen and you're pretty much, you'll wish the game was over. It is going to hurt, and it'll hurt long. Britain will be playing as though it's France. It's going to suck. You don't need Britain and France both playing screaming uncle, and then the U.S. is all by itself. Yeah, Japan's running rampant over there because everybody on this side screaming for help from the Americans. It's ugly. So don't abandon this navy here. Don't run all the way with all your navy. Another thing I've noticed: don't do what I've done, where you roll in here and fight, and then all of a sudden Germany takes Denmark and says you can't. I can't remember. There's certain rules with the Danish Straits on whether you can go in or not. But I've gone in there on non-combat move prior to the invasion there, for example. Well, that's cool, right? Then when Poland gets invaded, I can snag up. I don't think you can even see this. So. No, you can't see it. So, all right. Don't do this. It sucks. Actually, it's pretty fun, but it can suck. Right? Here's an option. Before you're a belligerent, you wander into the Danish Straits. Right? Well, when the Germans attack these guys, this guy will become British controlled. And there's a high probability that Germany will also attack France the same turn. If that's the case, then you just wiped out the German fleet with your British fleet and Polish fleet. Right? And usually when that happens, Germany will also take Denmark behind you and trap you in here and just... They may not even do anything to you. They just leave you trapped in there. If you don't have a transport, what are you going to do? You can't get out. You got to take over Denmark to leave. Well, if you got no transports, how do you leave? Right? You know, these things happen. But really, the biggest key here: defend your island. You're a prime target early in the game. It makes it very difficult for the Axis if they take London early. But because it ramps up everybody's production in a hurry, like the US automatically goes up to, I think, 25 or something like that. But little piece of advice: remember that you have an airbase there and an airbase here. And I don't know if you saw that battle in the bush, but General Hand Grenade had himself 3 scramble here, 3 scramble here, and he moved all his navy into here. Well, I could attack that navy with the German navy, but then I would have got 3 fighters from here and 3 fighters from there, so they would have had 6 fighters in there additional to the navy they had. And every time I tried to build an overwhelming force, I just couldn't compete because he always had more stuff that could get involved there. And if I went 100 all in, you know, just you know, your job as Britain is to appear weak where you want to get attacked, and to look really beefed up where you don't want to get attacked, really, and play the shell game. I'm here, I'm there, I'm there. You're just moving your pieces around so that it's more difficult for them to set up and stage up a set play type of attack on you. You're going to move your navy around. You're not going to just leave your navy sitting right here like a bunch of lumps. You're going to kind of spread them around, maybe move them around a bit, move them back, move them forward, move them back, move them forward, that way. But when you're moving them back and forward, move them to different sea zones, right? Make it harder for them to plan out what you're going to do. Plan out how they're going to kick your butt. Because if you leave your navy sitting there 2 or 3 turns in a row in the same spot, you won't even notice it, but they'll be building and moving stuff around that looks like they're doing something on the land, and all of a sudden your navy's gone. It can happen to anybody. I've done it, and I've had it done to me. So, you know, a little bit of proactive, you know, that's the whole point, right? The whole point of this is you're starting it off. You get to build the type of army and navy you want. If you want to be a major Air Force man, build carriers. Don't build any more battleships, right? Or build light carriers. I find them way more effective. They can move 4 from a base. They carry only 1 plane, sure. They only take 1 hit, sure. but they're cheap. You can build them anywhere. Any factory can build them. You don't have to worry about being close to a shipyard to repair them. Yeah, I really love the light carriers in this game. They totally changed it. So, and you know, I don't know what else to really talk about with Britain, because there's so many things you could do, right? So, build yourself a solid defense up there. Either use transports or something to stock up Gibraltar a bit. I mean, you got the fort, you got the coastal gun, but you don't want these Italians taking it over and trapping your units in there. Right? Then you can't get any more reinforcements from up there into the Med. Or you can't get these guys out of the Med to reinforce you up there if the Germans are being problematic. It's all about reaction or moving around so that you don't have to react in a predictable way. Right? You're trying to change. That's why I like the British so much. You try to don't be 100% predictable, right? Like, move your stuff around, right? Like this. If you stack them all up here, it's pretty obvious, right? Well, you know what? That's a pretty standard go, right? But now, I'm just going to pull a monkey out of my hat here as an example. You know, people are doing all this craziness. Well, you build a factory over there, and now you got a stack there. That doesn't look like too much, right? Like, why is he doing that? That's such a waste. That's silly. What's the point? The point is you get a couple of these that are already on the map. And what do you got? 2, 4, 5. Let's throw another 6 in there. 6, right? Well, now you got 6 infantry that if you want to, you can deliver there, right? Or you can deliver here. Or you can fly around and deliver them to Cairo or Burma. Right? Or you can reinforce Malay or take Siam from him from behind. Right? Don't be predictable. That is threat projection. Where is this threat going to land? It's out of the way. It's not a strategic location for a factory on land. Doesn't make sense for me to pay $10 to attack through that, or even for somebody else to start rolling through here and attacking it. Why would Italy want to start attacking a zero? I think Aiden's even a 0. These are all zeros, right? Why? Well, that's why. Or you don't build this. You don't build yourself a factory. And you build yourself a fort instead. And you're just shucking these guys up from South Africa. Right? I know that sounds strange, but you got them here. A large force here can threaten equally here, there, down in South Africa. But if you split this up, it'd only be 2 guys over here, 2 guys over here, and then you got 2 guys down in South Africa. But instead, if you got them all together, you got a landing party of 6 that can reinforce any location in the Indian Ocean here. It can't reach Australia, so that's kind of a stretch. If you got the Suez, they're starting at a base, so they can move 1, 2, and from here, 3, 3, 3, 3. Right? So anything, they can already get all the way to the Gibraltar if need be, provided that the passage is open. Yeah, it's hard to see this, but from here, 1, 2, 3. One thing I noticed about this map, if you're a player of Global 40, the sea zones are bigger in the Med, but the Med is smaller. There's less of them. You're much more able to move around the Med. It doesn't take 2 turns to cross the Med end to end. You can do it in 1 all the time. And unlike that game, you can't cross the Atlantic in 1 turn and then get to somewhere. You got to do it in 2. Same with the Pacific. So yeah, there you go. That's just an example. Like, use that theory of threat projection. That's just one quick example I just pulled out of my butt. I thought about using it but never used it. I'm sure if you look at the map, you can find a lot more places that you could do the same thing. And yeah. Here's a prime example. You do the same thing here at Gibraltar. You got these guys all at the back, and you got your let's get those Spanish dudes out of the way. And you got your stack, right? Doesn't look very scary until you realize that, yeah, it can land almost anywhere in the med. Or from here, you can fly up 1, 2, 3 and dump them in London, right? Yeah. Or 1, 2, 3 and land them on Bordeaux or Normandy. Yeah, I know, it's 1, 2, 3. Heck, you could have them all the way. You can't quite reach Aden, but you could dump them in Nubia here. Oh, here. Let's rotate that a bit more. You can't reach Aden. Here, there's a sea zone that interrupts you. So, but you can dump them guys in Nubia or Transjordan, or 1, 2, 3. You could reinforce Istanbul if you find the Turkey at war game, or land in Greece, or you could land in Yugoslavia or northern, or you could take out the Vichy, or, you know, there's so many options. That's called threat projection. Use that threat projection. That is your strongest key as the allies. Defend with less, and that's how. And you'll keep the axis jumping, because they got to keep rolling forward and taking stuff. Otherwise, when all the allied economies get kicked in, they're done. All right. Yeah, it's kind of not really a lot of moving of stuff here, but yeah, it's difficult to show anything because it totally depends on what other people are doing. Tech. I'm going to show you a couple techs for Britain. The reason for this is I don't really have a lot of theory on what's going on with Britain, but you're going to need probably some techs. I don't care what person you are, unless you're a landlocked country like Russia, especially if you're a country like Britain where you're all over the Navy everywhere. Improve shipyards. Do it. Don't kid yourself. 100% take it. Improve factories. 100% take it. You're increasing the production of all your factories by half, but you round it up, right? So a minor factory, instead of making 1, makes 2, right? Half of 5 is 2.5, so your majors are making 8. That's 8 units in a major, 2 units in a minor. That makes a huge difference, especially when your enemy does not have it. Wartime economy is just like the Dutch money I was showing you. You know, you roll 2 G6s, and whatever the face value is, it's extra change in your pocket. And you can get that even if you're blockaded. And you spend it as the Dutch would. You pick who gets to spend it. Don't matter. Radar, that's a handy one, but it's a lot of money, and you got to be very specific on where you put your radar dishes. So if you're worried about like a sea line, yeah, that's handy, but otherwise, eh. Anti-submarine warfare, very handy, especially if you keep getting convoyed. But if the Germans start giving up on the convoys, you don't really need it. Don't waste your time with heavy armor or jet aircraft or heavy bombers or advanced subs or strategic. Well, yeah, strategic rockets. We've had a sling and match from the British and the Germans before. That's interesting. But advanced artillery, you know, you could do it. It doesn't cost you any extra to buy the artillery that's advanced. Same thing with the advanced mechs. Those are too handy for anybody doing a ground game. But shipyards, factories, wartime income, anti-submarine warfare, and radar, but I wouldn't be too paranoid about radar. Yeah, and they're all 7, so they're all at 50%, right? 7 to 12. That's all you need on a die. All right, so that's it for the tech. And yeah, tech's kind of hard because it all depends on what the other guys got for tech. But those are some of the typical ones I do. Like I was saying, Don't stay static. Move your stuff around. Don't let the Axis plan out an attack for 5 turns on your parked Navy just sitting there doing nothing. Don't do another Pearl Harbor. Threat projection. There's lots of places where you can find yourself with this opportunity. Now, you're not going to typically leave it with just lone transports, but say you add this in there, right? Well, that's a threat. That's a threat to anybody. It's not a lot, but they might lose their Navy, or they might lose the initiative that they were looking for and attack farther, somewhere farther away, right? Just look for opportunities where you can set up that threat projection. I'm only going to show you 2 because they're really basic and they're already on the map. You can build a Navy base anywhere. You can kill a neutral and steal their Navy base. It costs you $10, but split it among the Allies. Make the French pay. They're not doing anything anyway. You know what I mean? Yeah, that's it. Same concepts will work here. This size, just stay alive. Delay, 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 and wait for help. Because you don't make as much as your enemy, and you need friends. If your friends don't show up, you're dead. So don't matter, you're dead. All right, I'm going to leave you there. Hopefully you found this informative and entertaining. I'm gonna, see you later. Bye.